Welcome to our In Focus discussion tonight on Hispanic Heritage Month. It's celebrated every year from September 15th to October 15th to recognize the achievements and contributions of Hispanic and Latin American champions who inspired others to achieve success. Tonight, we will hear from those living in our communities and how they're reflecting and thinking about their culture, heritage, and history. Kicking off our conversation tonight is Sylvia Castro. She is the Executive Director of the Suazo Business Center. Sylvia, thank you so much for being here and welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Sylvia, I provided a little bit of my own explanation, but how do you describe what Hispanic Heritage Month to other people?
So the way I describe it is basically a way to celebrate the contributions on what it means to be Latino Hispanic in the state of Utah. The reason why it's from September 15 and to October 15 is because it actually coincides with a lot of independent states from different countries from Spain. So it begins with Mexico being September 15, and then it keeps going to all of the other different Latin American countries as they celebrate their own independence until October 15.
Sylvia, why is it important for us to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month?
I think it's important because unfortunately sometimes it's forgotten the contributions that Latinos make to the state. I hear a lot about the economic health of the state, yet there's nothing much said about the workforce that Latinos make up in the state. Also, how many small businesses make up the economics of the state. At the Suazo Center, we see this every day. We see so many people from the Latino community coming in, learning how to become better, how to become business owners, and then in turn, create so many jobs. So as we look at the job creators and also as the workforce of the state of Utah, it's really made out of Latino. And I keep talking about in terms of we have to think about that when you look at the demographics of the state, the growth is also coming from the Latino community.
And one of the issues right now that is facing our nation is immigration reform. To this day, there is still not a clear pathway to citizenship for dreamers and undocumented immigrants. What are your thoughts when it comes to this topic?
You know, it's interesting because I think there's a lot of confusion on what immigration is and it isn't. There's a lot of misunderstandings of how the immigration system works because most people that are through it understand how broken it is. I think from an economic perspective, what you look at is we're missing out. We're missing out on this incredible workforce. We're missing out on these incredible individuals. We have folks coming in with IT degrees, with engineering degrees, with medical degrees, that are able to actually get visas into Canada, into other countries, yet getting a visa into the United States is an issue. You have an issue with families that have been contributing economically to the state for many years. You have an issue of split families. People think that they understand immigration, that it's simple, just get back in the line. And unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So the saddest thing is until there's a clear pathway, I think their confusion will continue and nothing will get solved.
On that note, what are some misconceptions or stereotypes that still exist about Hispanic Latino Americans and how harmful can these be?
I think there's a lot of assumptions. First of all, there's an assumption that a lot of us don't speak English or that we only speak Spanish. There's an assumption that the majority of us are undocumented. If you look at the actual data in this state and in other states, very small minorities undocumented. Also, a very small minority doesn't speak English. And there's also an assumption that we all come from one country instead of the multitude of countries. Some of us don't only speak Spanish, some of us also speak Portuguese, and we speak other languages such as French. I think when people think of Latinos, they think of this monolithic culture that is supposed to just eat one thing, do one thing. But there's such a variety of us. And I always joke that we cannot come in all flavors too. This is why you can be Afro-Latino, you can be Asian Latino too. We have also a very diverse set of ethnicities within the Latino community. And I think what's harmful is whenever you think you know something, you can make assumptions about a group of people instead of actually understanding where they come from.
Now, Sylvia, you talked about that economic impact and contributions of the Hispanic and Latino community. What would our state, our community, our economy be like if we did not have Hispanic or Latino community members?
Well, I think, first of all, I think we're all feeling the labor shortage right now. Imagine if Latinos were not here. I know it doesn't matter what industry you're in, you're feeling that labor shortage. And that's also part of the reason why immigration needs to be resolved. We are looking, if you look at a high school, the majority is minority. If you look at what's coming up in the education for K to 12 is also mostly Latino. So we have seen the up and coming, and we're seeing what this future workforce is going to look like, yet there's not any kind of discussion about it. I love to see the numbers of how many people come to our center, and we can see them grow. We have seen people for the past 3 years grow from 0 to 1 million, and also seen them from them being their only employee to hiring 500 people. And we see that every day, and we cannot talk enough about it because we want to really reiterate that also it's not just restaurants. When you think of a Latino business owner, there's restaurants, yes, there's also food manufacturers, there's also IT consultants, there are also photographers. There's a different variety of businesses that also are Latino, and it's not just one specific type of industry.
The contributions are immeasurable. Sylvia, whether someone is or is not Hispanic or Latino, what would you suggest Utahns do during this time of Hispanic Heritage Month?
Frankly, what I would do is I would invite them to, there's a few festivals going on actually throughout the valley, not just here in Salt Lake, there's also some in Ogden. And I will invite you to kind of learn a little bit about the music, the culture, the history. I will also invite you to check out a small business that is a Latino-owned business. With COVID, there was a lot of they were very hard hit about what happened with COVID, and you can see the resilience of the community. They're still going, they're still moving forward, but it's always good for you to kind of, maybe go out of your way and go to a business you usually don't frequent, and if it happens to be Latino, even better.
You've been hearing from Sylvia Castro, Executive Director of the Suazo Business Center. And Sylvia, thank you so much for being a part of our conversation tonight.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us for our second In Focus discussion tonight on Hispanic Heritage Month. Up next in our conversation is Andrea Hernandez, Program Coordinator for Weber State University's Women's Center. Andrea, great to have you here. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me, Rosie. It's really great to be here tonight.
Andrea, what does Hispanic Heritage Month mean to you? How are you reflecting or thinking about your culture and history at this time?
Right. Hispanic Heritage Month means so much to me. It's a time for me to reflect on just all of the narratives and experiences that I've come across. The one specifically that comes to mind is just the personal narrative that I have as being a daughter of immigrants, and I've had so much time to reflect on the narrative and how I'm just so privileged and honored to be here in this country. Sometimes it's, really up in the air of what might be going on, but I'm so lucky and blessed to be able to be here because of the sacrifices that my parents have done. And so when I'm thinking of Hispanic Heritage Month, I'm thinking about the narratives of my parents as immigrants, as well as other narratives of my students that I work with, of being immigrants coming into the United States and how powerful that is.
Now, are there any Hispanic or Latinx figures that have inspired you or made monumental changes in history?
Absolutely. There have been so many monumental people. The other day I was listening to Celia Cruz just because I wanted to feel some happiness and rhythm, and so there's artists and there's beautiful just authors and people that I can think about, but the ones that I mainly want to focus on is educators and immigrants. As an educator myself, I would not be where I am without fantastic educators who helped shape who I am, have helped my own personal journey into gaining my education, the narratives that I have, the experiences that I have. And so I really do want to give such a warm thank you to all the educators that are out there that are doing everything possible to be able to inspire other students just like me.
And especially during the COVID pandemic,
Absolutely.
we really saw how important teachers and educators really are. So let's talk now about some terminology. What is the difference between Hispanic and then Latinx?
Sure. So when we think about the term Hispanic, historically, it came out of the census, and it was an umbrella term created to lump all of the different Latino, Latinoa populations that we have here in the United States. And so it was a way for them to be able to categorize us as one specific group. So when we think about the term Latinx, it originated from the term Latino. However, the term Latino or Latina has been traditionally gendered because of the Spanish language. So when we think about the X at the end, it's thinking about the intersex of different identities, different experiences of different Latinos across the United States, across different countries within Central and South America. And so when we think about that X, excuse me, we think about the X that is inclusive of all of our experiences.
Andrea, how is Hispanic and Latin history actually woven into the fabric of U.S. history?
I want to say that we've been here forever. This used to be Mexico. We have native tribes here as well. So our histories are woven into the histories of the United States. I think what is super important is to be able to now focus on the narratives of Latinos within the United States. We had talked about the economic impact that Latinos have. We have a lot of impacts when it comes to different experiences and different narratives that we're able to educate other people based on our past. And I think that's super important for us to be able to have conversations about within our classrooms, within our homes. There's fantastic new literature when it comes to children's books, which I'm really strong advocate about, that we can learn a lot about Latino narratives. So I highly recommend to be able to have these conversations throughout Hispanic Heritage Month and beyond about the history of Latinos and the history that we are going to hopefully shape for this country.
Now, earlier in the conversation, you talked about how ethnicities that fall under the Hispanic and Latino and Latina categorization often get lumped together. Can you talk about the unique differences that actually exist within those ethnicities?
Absolutely, Rosie. So as I'm sitting here today, for example, I'm talking about my own personal narrative and experience as a Chicana, a Mexican-American woman, first generation. And so when I think about having us all lumped together, it can be very harmful because we're not thinking critically about the experiences that other individuals have. And so we need this time and the remainder of the time and throughout the year to reflect on other experiences of other Latinos and think about how you can be more inclusive of those narratives and those identities so that we're able to progress forward as a community, as gente, as raza, whatever you want to call your community that you engage with. But I think it's important for us to be able to reflect on the narrative of other individuals within our own community so that we're able to work together and assist each other to fight for each other's own personal rights and things like that.
Well said. You've been hearing from Andrea Hernandez, Program Coordinator for Weber State University's Women's Center. And thank you so much for being a part of our conversation tonight, Andrea. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. Welcome to our third and final In Focus discussion tonight on Hispanic Heritage Month. Rounding out our conversation tonight is Elogio Alejandre, the board chair serving Northern Utah for Latinos United, promoting education and civic engagement. Elogio, thank you so much for coming down here tonight and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here today.
Elogio, can you tell us about your organization, LUPEC? What do you do in the community and why is there a need for your services?
Yes, LUPEC is an organization. It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and what we do is we try to promote our Hispanic culture within the community. We also support our students, or Hispanic students going to the universities in the state of Utah, and we have celebrations in and around Ogden in Weber County. So there's just a lot of events that we promote.
Elogio, what does Hispanic Heritage Month mean to you? How are you reflecting or thinking about your culture and history at this time?
Well, this is very important to me. Even though I left my homeland 40, 4 years ago, I need a reminder that there are many people like myself that are even coming today. And every year we like to celebrate who we are, and we like to share our culture. And by culture I mean not only our music and our food, but also our history, who we are as a people. And we invite the communities to come together and participate and celebrate with us our great culture that we have.
Now, Elohio, are there any Hispanic or Latino figures that have inspired you or made monumental changes in history that you can remember?
Absolutely. So I grew up in Mexico for 12 years, and I went to school there, and so I knew that Hispanics played an important role in growing not only Mexico but Latin America. We studied the history, world history in school, and so I knew that there were many people that succeeded in life and that built things and found things. And so I knew that Juarez was a president of Mexico, and he made life easier for indigenous communities in Mexico. Unfortunately, when I came to Utah in the 7th grade, all of that went away. And even though I had great aspirations of being a teacher and being a principal and teaching at a university, at times I questioned whether or not I was going to be able to do that, because I didn't see too many people that looked like me in those jobs. And so now we do these events not only for ourselves to reflect and to think back about the culture that we left, but also to let our young students know that there are people who are like them that have contributed to the United States culture and economy and history and so on. So it is very important for me to be involved in the community and to help and support our new students that are looking up for role models to emulate as they go to school and accomplish big dreams that they have.
Wow, thank you so much for just sharing that personal experience of yours. And I agree, it's just so important to have that representation, especially as a young kid, right? Growing up in a place like Utah, it's so important to see people who look like us in all sorts of industries and all sorts of places as well. Elohio, why should people, whether they are or are not Hispanic or Latino, living in the United States, why should they celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month?
I think that for Latinos, it's easy. We need to remember who we are. We need to keep close to our roots. We see the world through those lenses that we were given when we were growing up, when we were little, so we need to keep those. But for those that are non-Latino, it is important for them too to celebrate and to participate in the cultural events, because they too need to understand that there are people who are not like them, that have similar goals in life. We want to go to school, we want to teach, we want to be doctors and lawyers and all those jobs that many of our students aspire to be. So non-Latino and Latino people need to celebrate together and learn about one another so that we can live in harmony.
Elohio, as a community leader, what are some issues, challenges, and barriers that you still see our Hispanic and Latino community facing today?
Well, throughout my 44 years in Utah, I have found many of those barriers. Of course, there's discrimination, and of course, there's unfairness, and there's a lack of opportunity and some of those things, but I have chosen to look at the opportunities that we have. We do have the opportunity to go to school, and there's nothing that anybody can do to keep us away from school. In fact, we are required to go to school. So those opportunities are there, and there's opportunities for work. People, the community, our society needs workers, especially right now. So I believe that there are many, many opportunities for us to contribute, to work, to go to school, and keep learning all throughout our lives, because that's very helpful when we find new jobs. And so, yes, there are those barriers, and there are those problems, and there are those challenges, but they can be overcome.
Elohio, we have to wrap soon, but real quick, let's talk about what are some of the celebrations taking place in Utah that the community can still participate in.
We have many festivals, and I just like to talk about one in Ogden this coming Saturday. It's a huge event. Thousands of people show up. We have an international band from Colombia that is coming to Ogden and to play at the Union Station from 2 to 7. We have over 50 vendors. We'll have all the foods that you can imagine from around the world, not just Mexico. So that's one thing that you can do, but there are so many other things that people can do, like reading a book, watching a movie that has authentic storyline. There's just too many things for us to do, but every year if we set a goal, we should be able to learn something about another culture, especially our neighbors that are here in the United States.
Well said. That festival sounds like it's going to be a good time this weekend.
Yes, it is.
You've been hearing from Elohio Alejandre, the board chair serving Northern Utah for Latinos United, promoting education and civic engagement. Elohio, thank you so much for being a part of our conversation tonight.
Thank you for having me.
And don't forget, we would love to hear from you about the show. We invite you to join our Facebook group by searching for ABC4 In Focus, or you can send us an email, infocus@abc4.com.